Join with computer.
Recording in progress.
Got it. Boom. Recording in progress. Welcome to Uncarcerated. I'm Lee Scott.
I am Kevin Scott. We are so smooth.
Yeah, we're back for yet another episode. First, Kev, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, bud. Nice to see
And I have been telling everybody we're related, so I hope you don't mind about that.
That is entirely true. I'd say the same.
If you
Is
get
that
pulled,
not true?
If you get pulled over, there may be a few things that have happened.
Great.
So
Great.
A lot has happened since we last had our last guest on. I think we took a break, and both you and I have been super busy. I'm doing some work with the Labor Coalition, Criminal Justice Committee. I've got some good information. People are starting to make some progress and some maybe hopefully having some judicial report cards and some oversight. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I want to hear what's going on with Community Spring and Just Income GNV. The CMC and WGOT, as you see right there, which may or may not be backwards for you guys. We still have not figured that out. Are gracious enough to let us do the show here, and we're really grateful for that. And speaking of the CMC, this is going to date the show, but Tuesday night at 7 there's Abolition 101. Do you know a little bit about that? I know it's Fight Toxic Prisons, and
yeah, it's sort of a collaborative workshop between Fight Toxic Prisons and Florida Prisoners Solidarity. They're going to just do like a very I think sort of like 101 basics of abolition, about policing, prison reform versus abolition, just sort of like going over a lot of like nuts and bolts of like the abolition movement. And I've been to a couple of these things before that are like really, really good. They're coming from a place of like great education and like research. So this isn't just like some ding dangs spitting out some stuff that they think is cool. Like this is coming from a place of like well-informed stuff. It's good.
And that's this Tuesday, February 8th at 7 p.m. at the Civic Media Center, which is 233 South Main.
433.
433 South. Don't go to 233 South Main.
That's
else. Just the St. Francis. So Kev, this has been I just want to point out before we just dive into what we're doing today that my phone is on. If you hear it ring, there's a reason for this. We've got a guest that's going to be calling in live from prison. So we actually are going to do some incarcerated on Uncarcerated tonight. We have a guest coming on named Derrick. I just want to give you a little bit of a backstory. This guy is brilliant, and I don't use that term loosely. He is absolutely brilliant. Has fought tooth and nail physically and emotionally, been put in some really compromising positions to make sure that there's programming at the prison that he is in for people to better themselves, whether it be Buddhist Sangha, meditation classes, self-help groups. This guy has designed curriculum based on the latest information that he's able to get in there, much like the guest we had a couple weeks ago.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome.
And he's going to call us in the 15 minutes that he'll have on the phone and just sort of have a conversation about like where he is, what he's been able to do to sort of like get rid of fear and be the best self that he can be. And he doesn't come home till October, so we want to give him a chance to have a conversation with us here on Uncarcerated. Kev, what's going on with Community Spring and Just Income? Second round is happening, right?
Yeah.
And you guys got a call from the fucking White House. What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. This is insane. So yeah, there's like almost too much happening. So the first round of people started getting their money. So the first $1,000 went out to the first 57 randomly selected people.
And I do want to point out, Just Income GNV is awarding universal basic income for people who are just recently released from prison.
That's right. Yeah. So the criteria was you had to be released within 6 months of the application deadline. So we try to keep it as close to the door as possible. So everyone meets that criteria, all 57 of these people. So they got $1,000 the first month. They already got that, and they're going to get $600 a month for the next 11 months. So it's 57 people. Already some like immediate outcomes of that, like some like really, I mean, I cried hard a lot in the last few weeks. Like there was some like really intense stories, like just a couple, like super briefly. One guy was like, this is going to save the house that my brother and I share. He's disabled. The brother is disabled. It's the house that we grew up in. Like we were about to lose the house, and this is going to save our family home, basically. God. So like that was intense. I mean, he came around the table and through COVID protocols to the side and just, started hugging. It was intense. It was like, we shared some tears. And then, people like when paid off probation fees, they had been like, so, barely making it, afraid they're going to get reincarcerated, went and like paid off those payments. Guy bought like a mobility scooter so he could get around. He's like, opened up his whole life. So he was happy he could give his nephew money for gas. He's like, I haven't been able to like actually give somebody money for a long time.
Oh my God. Like that's a whole thing that you don't even think about when you're living in poverty or when you've been away and incarcerated. Like giving to someone feels so good, and it is such a huge part of healing your soul, forgiving someone, giving something to someone. And when you don't have the capacity to do that, it kills a little part of you. And then the idea that $1,000 isn't a lot. The idea that the first thing you would think of is to help someone else, that shows you the kind of people you're dealing with.
Absolutely. Here. Yeah. I mean, he was like delighted to be able to like be a resource to someone else. Like, I think he had like that sense of like, I've been a burden, or I've been like whatever on the wrong side of the equation so many times. Like, he was just honored to be able to like give $20 to his nephew for gas. Like,
can we point out,
incredible.
These are formerly incarcerated individuals. These are the people that get made fun of on TV shows, that are the butt of jokes, that society has forgotten about, that get lumped into this category of bad people, demonized. And that's the sweetest thing that I've heard in a really long time. It's amazing.
He's this guy, he's one of the storytellers. So he'll be doing more like sharing of his experience and stuff. He's such a compelling story. Like his whole life story is like really compelling. And one guy, he just like talking about getting the money. He hadn't even received the money yet, but the idea that it was coming. He's like, I've heard no so many times, I forgot how to hear yes. And I was like, holy shit. Like he just like, you get so used to like rejection and things not going your way and like doors slammed in your face, so that it was almost like beyond belief that something good was happening to him. And it's like, God, this is so telling of like people that have been incarcerated, like the reality of like coming out and like the stigma, the abuse you've received inside, oftentimes before you've gone in, and then like the shit end of the stick on the outside as well when you come home. So like super compelling.
I'm the mayor of shit into the stick, by the way.
You're doing a great job.
Yeah,
I love your city. So the second round is being recruited right now. So 58 more people will start getting the same cadence of payments, and their money will come on like the end of March is like when that should start. There's some good press. We got like article in Vox. There's some national news coming. Documentary crew is going to be here. It's going to be here next week. So there's some like really compelling stuff going on, and we're excited that we can actually share this like with like a larger audience. Oh, and the thing about the White House, it's fucking crazy. So there's something called the Guaranteed Income Community of Practice, which is like a national group of people involved in like pushing the concept of guaranteed income largely, like in Washington. And they asked me to present at their next meeting on Tuesday, just about our pilot here, just because it is so unique. It's like it's kind of daring. Vox called it like a bold program, something like bold, yeah. Which I was like, fucking hey, we're bold. Yeah. So I'm going to give a little presentation about the pilot, and then I guess they said somebody from the White House is going to be on the call, I think, to discuss the child tax credit and some other nuances about guaranteed income. But exciting to have.
It's amazing.
Maybe somebody in the audience, even if they sign off before I ever even say a word, I'm excited to like, share about our pilot with any audience. So this is like a great opportunity to like, this population is typically overlooked, ostracized, demonized, discounted. And if this can show that guaranteed income works for this population, who is especially vulnerable to like financial calamity, if this works for this population, then that has a much broader impact as well. Like, holy shit, if that works for this super like ostracized group, then this is like very available as a good idea for population at large. So like this could have some like really big impact,
Andrew Wang 2024.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, this is like it is for formerly incarcerated people, but like you could extrapolate the findings maybe to like a broader population as well. We'll see.
So you still have time. Tuesday, February 8th. Go out, get yourself arrested, so that Kevin will give you money.
Get that felony. Yeah.
All right. So we got a few minutes before before Derrick calls in, and I want to talk about something that we will come back to because this is going to end up, we're going to get interrupted here. But I want to start with one word, and that word is fear. Fear is at the center of so much of what we do as addicts, people with mental health problems, people that suffer from trauma, PTSD. The decisions that we make, fear can be really motivating for you. I hear guys a lot and women say the one reason I'm not going back is fear. You know, it only keeps you motivated and sober for so long. You've got to base it around a lot more than that. But this conversation can go in a lot of directions. But I heard fear in Derrick's voice when I talked to him on the phone. I mentor a few guys that are still incarcerated, and Derrick probably won't talk about this when we have him on. Derrick is going to show a side of himself that is brilliant and kind and hardworking. I think it's true of all of us, but especially those of us that have been incarcerated. There's so much shame and embarrassment that we don't let on to the fear side. You don't let on when you're in there because you can become a victim. You're vulnerable. And then when you come home, you're trying to do so much in such a short period of time because of fear. You're afraid to go back. You're afraid to lose loved ones. You've already lost so many relationships and connections. So I want to start there because I think we're going to hear some of that in Derrick's voice. And I think he's very motivated, but he's also afraid. He's afraid that life in the last 7 or 8 years has passed him by, and the opportunities to get married, to have a child, to have the career and creative life that he wants to are passing him by day, moment by moment. And so I just want to talk a little bit about fear and how it's manifested in your life, like, and what are the practices that you've had to adopt to get rid of that. So
yeah,
is that too broad of a brush there, buddy?
We could do an entire series on just the word and the topic of fear. Like, that's such a big deal. I think that even like when we were talking about like some of like my story, like my upbringing a little bit, like fear has been such an informative, massive part of my life. It has led to like great tragedy. It's maybe been motivating at times. But it has definitely steered my ship a lot. Like growing up in like a violence environment, very unstable, that, it was abusive. Like, so like there was like a lot of like, like true like terror, like bodily terror, and like terror for like what's next. And
now they're able to show, by the way, with CT scans and a lot of neuroscience, that stored trauma lives inside of you.
Yeah.
And so something that happened to you 20, 30, 40 years ago, you're doing something now. You are making a turn in traffic. You're making a choice in your career, making a choice in your relationship, whatever it is, based on something that is just in your body that you're not even aware of.
Yeah. I think that for me, I hate to even admit this, but I think it's probably true, is that like fear became such a like natural state or like way of being, like just a way of operating, that it almost is like hard to imagine its absence, because like it's become just so like almost like baseline for so much of like, for most of my life. It's not necessarily the case as much today, thank God, but like that was like a big part of like what was going on with me. And like it was very, very like not okay to like acknowledge, like, man, like I feel fear, like I'm afraid. It's like not manly or something, or like wasn't acceptable to like speak about it. I can say it now, but like most of my life it was like, it seemed like something like it was like a sign of weakness or something like that. So like I would kind of bottle it up. So like living a life of like fear, and which led to like a lot of like addiction stuff, and like, like I'm afraid you're not gonna, I really want you to like me. I'm afraid I'm not going to be accepted. I'm afraid of
the fear of being alone.
Yeah.
I've not left relationships because I'm afraid to be alone. I'm afraid of hurting someone's feelings. Like it just comes up in so many of the things that we do.
Totally. Yeah. And so like if that's like your like the hub of how you're like operating, like so many things are going to be like fucked up like in your orbit.
Right.
So kind of like having that existence and then going into prison where like that was just like absolutely magnified, like all of your like fears, like you're talking about like, what's going to happen when I get out, the world,
will I ever get out,
the world, Will's gonna leave me behind.
All right, so we got Derrick
Okay.
calling in now. So we'll pause this fear conversation. We'll come back to it
Over and over.
over and over, because I have a few statistics I want to
Hello.
get to
This is a
before
prepaid debit call.
we get to Derrick's call. But before we get off the show, I'm going to
The
revisit
Indiana
this.
Department of Correction, Blanchfield. This call is from a correction facility and is subject to monitoring and recording. Thank you for using GTL.
Hey, Derrick, you are live on Uncarcerated. I say live, but the show is recorded. I just want to make sure you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I was going to ask you if this would be live or if it'd be recorded and then edited later. So.
We are recording it, but I do not know how to edit, so we're just going with it, man. But the good news is you're fucking brilliant, so this is going to be fine. How are you, buddy?
I'm okay. Honestly, it's been a rough day. My grandma is passing away right now, actually. So I've been talking to my mom on the phone and preparing for this and just kind of processing that experience. That's really my first major loss while I've been incarcerated. So
I'm so sorry.
So Derrick, I'm sorry to hear that. Love you, buddy. I really appreciate you being a champ and doing this with all that going on. You're on with myself and Kevin. We just wanted to talk to you and see how you're doing. And I think the starting point here in this conversation is how long have you been down for, and what's it looking like from the day you got to RDC to now? What's the time been like so far?
Oh man, well, I had 4 months out in 2017 on bond while I was awaiting sentencing. But aside from those 4 months, I've been incarcerated for almost 7 years straight. So I had a little reprieve there for a moment, which was kind of like a slow torture, considering I knew I was coming back to prison. So it's been an interesting journey. Really, it's been transformative in a lot of ways. I mean, there's obviously a lot of bad stuff that goes along with being incarcerated, but there's been a lot of positive stuff as well. I mean, I can talk about the internal aspect of that if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think we don't need to delve into the really bad stuff like me defeating you for a Toastmasters presidency.
By one vote. That's all right. That's all right. You blindsided me. That's okay.
But I do want to talk about like sort of the internal growth and how you were able to get from the terror and the fear of entering prison and not knowing how long you'll be gone for, fighting multiple cases while you were there, from that point to sort of the inner peace that you've been able to find now. If you want to talk about some of the inner workings of that, like what classes have you gone to, that kind of stuff.
I've got a lot to say about that actually, and I prepared for that. So, I had been to jail prior to my arrest in 2015, and in 2015 everything just came crashing down. So my marriage of 10 years was over. I'd lost a child and several things had occurred, a bunch of crimes. So, this pattern that addicts find themselves repeating of relapse and maybe not recovery, but relapse again. It had me asking myself questions like, am I a good person? I think we all feel as if we're good people, despite the things we may have done. But I started to really just have an existential crisis. I mean, if the sum total of my actions has had such a negative effect on the people that have knowledge of me to where they say I'm a bad person, am I delusional in thinking I'm a good person? You can see the rabbit hole that's created by that line of thinking. And at its core, I think the real questions were, is there something wrong with me as a person? So I sat in a jail cell wondering these things. Is there something wrong with me as a person that's unfixable? How is it that I can continue to do things that misalign me with who I want to be? And is there a way out of that? Or am I just stuck in this pattern? of repeating this process. So I was excited to come to prison and take part in RWI because I'd heard so many good things about it. And you can obviously see the amount of money and effort pouring into that program.
Just for our listeners, that's recovery while incarcerated. So it's the chance to have some recovery, a pretty cursory level amount of recovery, but people tend to dive in a little deeper if they want it. And then you have a chance to have a sentence modification where you'd be able to return in front of the judge and give some of your time back or have it changed over to probation. So there's some opportunities there as well as some time cuts, which is exclusive to Indiana. It's not something that goes on around the country. I just want to kind of break that down for the listeners.
Yeah, no, that's good. I appreciate that. So that program in Indiana is a big deal. And I thought, yay, I'm going to go and I'm going to get all of these answers. I'm going to get treatment that I've never been able to receive. I don't have much money. So in all those years of addiction on the streets, I never had access to rehab or recovery centers or real therapy or anything like that. So I got to the program and was extremely disappointed in what I saw. But there was one guy who used to be the program director who talked about pathways in the brain. And that all started to make sense once I started to understand that the brain is hijacked by drug addiction, and those constructs continue to exist even after you put the drug down. Then I started to see a way out. And of course, they gave me the opportunity to design and teach a class on meditation and mindfulness, which paired with neuroscience is absolutely groundbreaking in what it teaches us can happen to a brain when we try to reshape our behaviors and our thoughts. So that was really the beginning of the transformation for me. The amount of work I put into it and the path I saw out of it lied in making sense of why I was doing the things I was doing, even when I didn't want to do them.
Kevin, do you have any questions there so far?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's striking me so much as you're speaking, we were just talking about like how oftentimes people incarcerated are demonized, and even after release, it's like this sort of like stigma. And like hearing you speak is 100% illustrating the total opposite of that. Is that you are obviously like a clear-minded, introspective, self-reflective, self-aware human being who had even like questioned your own like value and worth like as a person, which is like heartbreaking to hear. I wonder if you could like maybe like talk a little bit about like if you have any like concerns about like carrying that label as you're approaching coming home later this year. Like are you in any way concerned about like your sense of yourself and what's going to come out the door with you?
Oh, big time. That's yeah. So this kind of goes to our failure to balance criminal justice with restorative justice. You know, we live in a very punitive culture, and we've gotten very good at punishing people, but we're still failing to move beyond that. And the world around us wants to forever see us as the worst thing we've ever done. And that has an enormous impact on an individual after they're released. So I live in fear of that because I've experienced it before. And it goes like this. We all have fears and insecurities. And the way people respond to and treat us can have a powerful impact on affirming or denying those fears. When you're getting the message that you're unforgiven, you begin to feel unworthy of the forgiveness you need. And you begin to feel less than. So you lose the ability to see yourself as anything more than the worst thing you've ever been. A criminal, a drug addict, a loser, etc. So despite what the rabidly optimistic positivist would have us believe, most people can't just positively affirm their way out of this. Social rewards are motivating factors for a slew of behaviors, and social rejection stimulates the same regions of the brain as physical pain. So being rejected, it hurts literally. And in my opinion, it's the mechanisms within this the post-release system that are unyielding and unforgiving that are a large contributing factor to recidivism. So yeah, that's on my mind constantly.
Derrick, do you, as you're planning to come home, one of the things that Kevin and I have talked about on the show before, both Kevin and I taught classes in prison, mentored people, helped people with their GEDs. We felt like we got stripped away of everything that we were, and we found ourselves and built a part of ourselves up that felt like somebody. And you come home and you're no longer connected to your best friends, your war buddies. You're no longer teaching classes. You work a menial job usually when you come home just to survive and just to gain some stability. So that steep drop off from being someone in prison to being nobody, free, I'm wondering, like, is that a fear for you? And have you started to create a plan for yourself to, like, maybe have those types of things be a part of your life, whether it's volunteer work, service work, like how are you going to avoid that steep drop off?
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Well, thank you. I'm really good at this.
Yeah. There's a quote I read before this interview. It says, "Oh my soul, be prepared for him who knows how to ask questions." So yeah, that's terrifying, and I've journaled about that so much over the years because, as you said, in this place, there are opportunities in here that wouldn't naturally be provided to a person out there without quite a bit of preparation. I mean, I was just handed the ability to design classes for programs. I mean, I don't have a college degree, so that's not typical. And that is a steep drop off. I think I said to you on the other phone the other night, I have this huge fear of getting out and working in a factory and just dying out, feeling worthless and meaningless. You know, I want my life to have meaning. I want it to have purpose. I know what I'm capable of, but the opportunities available to me are not going to give me that sense of self-worth in the beginning. So your advice to me was to do what you have to do for the first year, however long it is, and just kind of push through it. I do have goals as far as a plan. I don't have a specific plan. I have almost 3 years of house arrest when I get out, so I won't be able to go to certain things that I would like to go to keep myself active and involved in some of those communities, like Toastmasters. But there are, myriad opportunities online, to stay engaged and involved. So it's going to be a struggle, and it's going to take some effort to do that because it's easy to fall into the self-pity cycle and the lethargy as well. So.
Derrick, can you talk a little bit about the opportunity, dive in a little bit deeper, the opportunity to teach while you're in there, design curriculum? I know in my experience, teaching something taught me twice as much as if I had been taking the class, because it forced me into the material and it forced me to practice the material, because these people that I was living with, I didn't want them to see me standing in front of them teaching something that I wasn't practicing. So that really made me double down on my efforts to try to practice mindfulness and things that would help me. So I just wanted to hear a little bit about what you've taught, and was it a struggle to get programming at this prison? In my experience, again, I think prison officials have no problem making sure that you go to work on the side of the road or at some factory. They don't have a problem making sure that happens, but it seems to be there's a struggle for self-betterment. So I just want you to speak a little bit to that if you can.
Sure. Yeah, and you can see that truth being exhibited now post COVID. So when you were here, we had quite a bit of support from the administration to create inmate-led classes and initiatives. Positive Peers as a spinoff from Toastmasters, and the Obstacles and Opportunities events we would do in the gym, where we'd have motivational speakers that were offenders speaking. The meditation classes that I was able to teach. That is all gone now. So it's like as soon as they had an opportunity to get rid of the classrooms that were designated for that, that's what they did. Now it's a work program that's in the old Toastmasters room. There's no more Toastmasters. The Sangha has been moved out of its classroom. There's no more band practice. That's another thing I used to do, play drums here. It was amazing to be able to create music and have that outlet. That's gone completely. Pretty much everything that was the positive peers is gone. You know, it's all been cast away. And I don't know, the classes I was able to teach, I had pretty much free reign, and I covered basic meditation and basic mindfulness. And like you were saying in the beginning, it was me sitting in a chair, nervously reading from a piece of paper that I'd written on, and by the end, it was me standing up in front of a class with a dry erase board with a memorized hour-long class, you know. So it helped me grow a lot as a person, and I know it's helped a lot of people grow as people that I've encountered, because they still write me, they still stay in touch with me, and they still help out. So that stuff matters. I don't know if it matters as much to the administration as it does to us, but in my experience, it's been the inmate-led initiatives that have been the most beneficial and life-changing in here.
Derrick, I forgot to tell you, Kevin, also a mindful meditator, also teaches meditation class. I go to his meditation class on Saturdays, but more importantly, he's a drummer.
Whoa. Brother from another mother.
Yeah, I am you, Derrick.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, I want to say,
great.
just as you were talking about, and actually, and what Lee was saying about that sort of like the sharp drop off of like, I'm in prison, I'm somebody, I've got my Sangha in particular, like that was like a big part of how I navigated my prison experience. I had a tight brotherhood of guys, and we would sit every week, and like, you know, we were really, you know, kind of supporting each other through the whole experience. And then to come home, it was like really jarring, you know, like I was on fire, I felt like I was somebody, and then it was like that, like sort of like endlessly popping my balloon over and over again. But I will say, like, there's like some like really great opportunities now to plug into larger Sangha through like online sitting, and so like there's like definitely it will change shape, but it doesn't have to stop. And I think that like what you're bringing to this is like so valuable, and I think that your voice and like your story will actually be very compelling on the outside as well.
I appreciate that, and I hope so. There is that desire for us to see ourselves at our best, and to want others to see that as well. And when I go home, I know that most of the people that I am around again are their memory of me is not all of this stuff I've done while here, because they haven't seen that. Their memory of me is what was before. So there is a schism between how you see yourself and how you want to be seen versus the evidence you've given the people to whom you're wanting to be perceived in that way. So it is an interesting thing, and something that's just going to have to be worked through, you know.
Oh shit, I haven't been recording. Can you call back? No, I'm just kidding, man. I'm joking. Just want to see if you're paying attention.
Yeah, that's all right.
So
all of this.
Derrick, what's it look like from here moving forward? Like, how much time do you have left?
Well, as you know, I had the sentencing last year, and that's an interesting thing I just want to touch on briefly. I had a charge brought up on me 5 years after the fact, 1 year outside of the detention, and was just sentenced on that last year. So they gave me 2 more years on my sentence, and that puts me out next year, but I'll be in work release this year. So
cool. I'm glad to hear it. Can you Derrick, can you talk a little bit about what the conditions have been like since COVID? I mean, I know that like obviously programming has ceased, but like, do you feel safe? Has it increased drug activity? Has it increased like health activity? Have there been overdoses? Like what's going on for the millions of people listening to this? What's going on in prison these days?
Well, in this prison in particular, everything has gotten worse, and that that was facilitated in part by a change in administration and the concern the administration had, but also by the type of people they started sending here. They started sending people from higher level prisons to this facility about a year ago, and it changed the entire culture. So there is a bunch of drugs now. There is quite a bit of violence, and I mean, I'm in a pretty nice spot here. I've been here long enough and done enough things to have been afforded some privileges. But if I was in a bigger dorm, I don't think I'd be able to take it. I think I'd have a nervous breakdown from the exposure to that environment. It's pretty bad.
Have you experienced any violence yourself? Anything that you can talk about, or if not, we can skip right over it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's no problem. So about a year ago, actually, dang, it was almost 2 years ago now. Wow. I had guys getting high on my bed and leaving contraband behind. Well, I have a lot to lose. I was also facing an outside case, so any write-up would have really damaged my ability to get a favorable sentence. So I tried to approach the situation where you're supposed to by talking to these people, and it did not stop. So I wrote a request trying to get a bed move. I got denied the bed move. Then I wrote another request putting on there why I needed the bed move. Didn't put any names on it, but anyway, that request got read. I got labeled. I got jumped by 5 people afterward. And the facility's response, after I left the dorm and moved to another dorm, the facility's response was to give one of the individuals involved a piece of paper saying that I had checked in under this individual's name. That individual, by the way, is the number one, or the lead person in one of the biggest gangs here. So
Right.
Really, if I'd have been at a higher level prison, I probably would have been killed over that.
Sorry, Derrick. I know, like that kind of stuff is like, we were talking about fear when you called in and how we normalize this stuff just to get through it. But I mean, that's like stored body trauma there.
Yeah. Can you talk about, like, obviously, like, there's a level of fear that goes with that, like the situation that you found yourself in. Can you talk about, like, sort of like the cumulative toll that takes on you to, like, just to be living in a state of sort of like endless fear?
Oh yeah, at the time, the night after I got jumped, I slept with a pen in my hand, and I didn't even sleep. I just laid there on my side, and I thought, well, if someone comes up to me, I can at least get one stabbing motion in before anything else happens. So that's not healthy or normal, right? And it's really traumatic. But worse than that, well, maybe not worse than that, but I think equally as traumatizing was having to leave the dorm and then having all of these people see you as something that you're not, a snitch or a rat or whatever. By the way, nobody got in trouble by anything I ever did. I never told on anybody, but the way it was perceived was the opposite of that. So anytime I had to leave the building I went to go anywhere to get medicine or see a doctor, for a while people would yell things. I never knew if I was just going to get jumped on the way to eat. And that does take its toll. It closes you off from the people around you. So much of my practice in Buddhism and in meditation for the first couple of years I was here was about opening my heart to people and opening my mind to people. But that experience created an atmosphere of rejection and dejection. And, I still find myself being kind of cold-hearted towards people just to guard myself. So I feel like all of the progress I've made, a lot of it was undone by that experience.
Sorry, Derrick. I know what a good person you are, and I know, you want to have an open heart and an open mind. It's sort of like what Buddhist Sangha teaches you. And I know that this experience can leave you feeling otherwise, just out of trauma. Are you with the house arrest situation when you come home? Kevin talked about doing some stuff online. What does the recovery world look like for you? Do you plan on being involved in any type of recovery and therapy? Like, what's that look like?
Well, in my area, it's 12 steps only. There's no smart recovery or any alternative group meeting. So I will have to do the 12-step meeting thing as a condition of probation, I'm sure. So I will do that, and I'll participate, positively and try to, contribute positively to that environment. I will also be seeking out individual therapy. They do recovery works in this state. I don't know if you remember that. They
Yeah.
basically fund you up to a certain amount for post-release therapy. So I'm going to use that, and hopefully I'll be able to continue that once the funding runs out. But that's a really great initiative that this state began. So,
Derrick, real quick before we get cut off, we do something fun at the end of every show now. We need 3 things that you're listening to and 3 books that you're reading.
That's good.
3 things I'm listening to: Pale Honey, the
Who?
band. I just got into the band Bully, and of course Modest Mouse always. Isaac Brock has a direct line to my heart. So 3 books I'm reading.
Kevin's friends with Modest Mouse, just so you know. Maybe we can get you an autograph to get that sent in.
That would be incredible. Yeah, give me a pen pal too while you're at it.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So books I'm reading, rereading The Wheel of Time. I'm reading The Science of Enlightenment by Shinzen Young. And let's see. Is there a third one? I don't think there is a third one.
Fair enough.
That's fair. Hey, so that you know that they made a show out of The Wheel of Time.
Yes, I know. Trust me. I was nerding out with Message Sports 8 years ago, arguing that it's a better series than Game of Thrones. So I'm glad to see that it's getting its time in the sunlight.
It's on Amazon, and it's like my son's favorite thing. So I tried to give it a chance, but I hate anything with British accents and horses. So I'm out.
That's a very specific.
Oh man, that's a lot of the world that's closed off to you.
That's super limiting. You should have a bureau.
I'm anti-medieval.
That's great.
Dude, thank you so much for joining us, man. Is there anything else that you want to add before we let you go?
Yeah, and hopefully I can get through this. I mean, let me think here. So there's a lot of negative stuff, that comes along with this. But I mean, this life is interesting, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. So no matter what, I've got that working for me. And I mean, I actually have a lot of things working for me, but feeling happy to be alive is a big one, and I see people every day who coast through this space caught up and swept away by torrents of exhausting negativity. And I empathize with them. I lived many years of my life that way, but if coming to prison is what it takes to learn how to live with gratitude, that's a fair price to me, because life really is amazing, and I think the future is going to be amazing as well. So
Goddamn.
that's it.
That's twice you've made me cry on this thing.
That's good, buddy. I'm glad we met, and I love you. And Kevin, hopefully I get to meet you one day. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for coming and sharing so clearly and succinctly about your experience. And I think that this will be very illuminating for a lot of people that might not have ever heard somebody speaking from within a prison in this very moment. And I think that you are absolutely highlighting the caliber of people that are being held in cages right now. And I've never met you, obviously, but hearing you speak, it's clear that you are a very kind, open-hearted human being. And I wish that you were my neighbor. Honestly, you're the kind of person that, not oh shit, we got to take this guy home. The prison said he had to leave today. This is you are the kind of person that's welcome you with open arms type, you will be an asset to the community no matter where you are.
1 minute remaining.
Look at that. We timed it out perfectly.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I appreciate that. And if the door's open for me to come to Florida, as soon as I'm off house arrest, I'm coming. So,
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Well, I cannot wait to hear what your journey looks like and have you on the show again a year from now.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, Derrick.
I'll talk to you later.
Love you, buddy.
Kevin, you have a good evening.
All right, Derrick.
Thanks, man.
Later, bud.
Wow. so much to unpack there. It made me cry when he talked about a couple of times, but the thing that really got me there, Kevin, what was the part where he was talking about the fear of like life was passing him by, and was he a good person? I asked myself that. I got asked that question by somebody that I was interested in, early on when I was in prison, and we would talk on the phone, and she was like, well, I don't know if you're a good person or not. And I hung up the phone and I thought, I've got this like body of work from being a single dad to doing charity work to just being nice to people that says I'm a good person, but I've got a criminal record that said I huffed duster and beat up a cop, and I'm sitting here in prison. Am I a good person? I don't even know it. I don't even know. Like, if you look at it in a courtroom, the prosecutor says you're not a good person.
Yeah, put you under the jail.
And right.
Yeah.
And so it tore me up asking that question. And then I had a therapist, thank God, who was like, the simple fact that you asked yourself that question means that you're a good person.
Oh, fuck. Oh,
And I
that's
was
good.
like, that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
I remember like being handcuffed, being shackled, being put into a cage, whatever it may be, and being like, holy fuck, like, do they know something I don't? Like, is this body dangerous? Like, am I like about to like do something that's gonna like harm like
Yeah.
like a lot of people, or
Right.
like oh my god, like maybe I'm the last to know that I am like a truly dangerous person. Like, and I just, holy fuck, I'm just finding this out now.
Yeah.
And it similar like to what he was saying and what you're saying, like it like made me question my entire value. Like, am I a good person? Like, am I okay? Like, maybe I'm just fucking not okay, which was horrible because that's not the case at all. And the fact that that's what was coming out of that experience is like, like that sort of like deep grinding, it's almost like a loathing or something. There's like some sort of like really detrimental like negativity to that. It was awful. It was awful. It took me a while to undo all of that.
Yeah. And what's crazy to me, we have some similar experiences and some differences, but like, people ask me, I remember like going to jail. And by the way, so my crime was both times I got in trouble was inhaling duster and then trying to kill myself, and the bullshit that came afterwards, getting woken up by the cops, getting dragged out of my car, whatever it is, and then the things that happen after that. Stealing a $5.89 can of duster cost like almost 6 years of my life, And I remember calling my best friend in LA from jail. And I was like, I'm just so depressed, man. I just didn't even want to live anymore. I'm inhaling this duster, saying to myself, please don't wake up. Please don't wake up. Please don't wake up, over and over and over again. And he goes, why don't you just do blow and drink like the rest of us? Which is a fucking awful advice. But the amount of self-loathing that I had, and just like survivor's guilt from people dying close to me, that would cause me to self-flagellate. Like, the closest thing to that I can describe to inhaling duster is cutting. It's along the lines of like, I just wanted to feel more, inflict more pain on myself than I was already in, so that I didn't have to feel that pain, if that makes any sense. And then you get thrown in jail and like basically treated like you're an awful person, and then that just confirms what you thought. And then, by the way, when you're released, they're like, oh yeah, go be free. And to do that, you have to like yourself. To do that with any level of success, and not violate your probation or your parole and end up using again or whatever, you have to love yourself to get through that successfully. How are you supposed to do it with that experience leading up to it?
Yeah, the odds are wildly against you before, during, and after the entire experience.
Yeah.
Like the fact that anyone makes it through that in any kind of way intact is fucking miraculous. Honestly, like it's not like it's not designed for that. That I had no inkling of like, hey man, like we're here to support you through this, and like this is all for like the better good of you and the world. Like there was none of that. There wasn't even like the illusion of that. It's like straight punitive. It's straight just like the best part of you ran down your mother's leg. I mean, just like we're gonna stomp on your photographs of like your child. Like we're gonna like throw your shit everywhere. We're gonna like dehumanize your visitors when they come see you. We're gonna make everything as difficult as possible. You're gonna eat rotten food. You're gonna be burned, frozen. Your laundry's gonna smell like piss. I mean, like the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like everything from the rooter to the tutor.
Yep.
Was just absolute
Yeah.
fucking destruction.
Confirming the self-loathing that you had that got you into that mess. It's
Yeah,
insane.
Yeah, it's cyclical and like it's working really well. I will say, like, I mean, I feel like the whole topic of fear, we might have to just like pause it and make
Yeah,
a whole other
We'll have to
episode.
come back.
But I will say, listening to Derrick speak, like I almost cried several times too, because like what an amazing illustration of like what he's just a good person who
Yeah.
has like really done a lot of like difficult work for himself and for other people. He even said like my practice has been to like be open-minded, to be open-hearted, and it is like in that environment, like it's so challenging, you know, like you are with like a lot of like different personalities. The system is sort of working against you, like there's so much to grind against in that environment. So to hear him like sharing his experience, talking about like his devotion to himself and to other people was like so touching, and you could like hear it in his voice. Like you could tell like there was like heartache, there was fear, like it was all there. And it was just, God, it was so precious for him to like share so openly and honestly. And God, like I really hope we talk to him again sincerely. That was great, man. Really great.
So what's next for us is we're going to turn right back around and give you another episode very quickly. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube there. Like, rate, leave us your comments. If you have any stories, you can email us uncarceratedpod@gmail.com. That's uncarceratedpod@gmail.com. If you've been touched by the criminal justice system, whether you're a family member, a friend, you just have something you want to say, please leave it in the comments section. And we're very excited because the next episode, we're going to interview a guy who is free. This is the person that I looked up to when I was in prison. The guy that I looked at who I was like, that's who I want my life to be like while he was in there, because the way he carried himself and the amount of work that he put in helping other people, I just was like, that guy has something that I want. And I'm just so beyond beaming that he's living a super successful life in Atlanta now. And so we're going to talk to him on the next episode, which will be really, really shortly. Quick turnaround.
Sweet. So some great guests.
Yeah.
There's some really great ones coming in the future. We're excited to hear people share their stories. There's like really great voices, and like I think it's amazing that we have this opportunity now for people to like, we've just kind of mentioned this before, like things have been bottled up for so long, and now to be able to like share openly, like, and hopefully in like what feels like a safe space. So amazing.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin.
Love you.
Appreciate you. I love you too, man. All right. Thanks for joining us on Uncarcerated. Again, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you very, very soon.
Adios.
And I'm going to hit the off button now, just so you know.
That helps.